Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us at this session. We are today with fantastic panelists, both from the FinTech and the Incumbent side, to really speak about SME banking and the region. So I'll give the opportunity for our panelists to introduce themselves, starting with, we've got three really interesting panelists. So we've got Osman, COO for AMTD Digital, Shailesh, CEO of Matchmove, and also Joyce, Managing Director and Group Head of SME Banking at DBS. Why don't you all take the opportunity to say who you are, where you're from, and then we'll go into the detail because we don't have a lot of time. So Shailesh, why don't we start with yourself?
Sure, thanks, Paul. It's so great to be here. Founder and CEO of Matchmove. We're Singapore headquartered FinTech operational across 7 countries. We started out Matchmove Pay, or a journey into FinTech, because we found a fundamental problem with payments and virtual banking about 6 years ago. Prior to that, we used to be an entertainment platform powering B2B brands across the region, had millions of users, but found most of them could not make purchases online. They didn't have that magic 6-digit, but didn't have a virtual account, resorting to cash and alternative payment. We did speak with a number of incumbent banks at the time, tried to look for different ways in which we could solve for it. Found there were many, many issues that we face in terms of having a pan-Asian approach. So we then decided to pivot into what is now known as banking as a service, which basically means that we provide a layer to brands to be able to pull essential services, create an account, issue a card, provide different form factors for spending, for remitting overseas, and over time build a credit score against which they can borrow. We're B2B, so you don't know of Matchmove, but you do know of perhaps many of our customers and organizations. We have about 80 to 90 organizations across the region who use us, and they basically like to come to us because we offer flexibility, access to data, safety, but without the dependencies that come up with in working with incumbent banks today.
Fantastic. Thank you for that introduction. Joyce, yourself and DBS.
Hi. So DBS is probably about 52, 53 years old. We are the only bank here in this discussion that is maybe called the traditional bank here. But just to let you know, we're also the youngest SME bank here in Singapore. Okay. So SME banking is basically in 6 countries: Singapore, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, China, and Taiwan. Okay. We are very humbled that, over the past years, we have been awarded, by Euromoney, the bankers, Global Finance as the world best bank. More importantly, we have awarded by Euromoney twice in a row, right, as the world best digital bank. And for the SME side, we were awarded the world best SME bank in 2018 by Euromoney, and also the world best global SME bank of the year by IFC 2 years in a row, and also Asia Pacific SME Bank of the Year by different magazines, right? But I think we are most proud of is that we're the safest bank in Asia, 12 years in a row. So for us here in DBS, we started our digital side, about 8 years ago. Okay, so afterward we can talk more about what is the first that DBS has done together with FinTechs and together with what I call startups of making the digital banking even more viable and more feasible and more interesting for our customer.
Great, thank you for that introduction, Joyce. Osman.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Osman Faiz, presenting today AMTD Digital in Singapore. I'm the COO and CIO. So bit of about AMTD. AMTD is a group which is a conglomerate of various components. So we are the largest Asian private investment bank, and AMTD Digital is headquartered as we speak in Singapore. And what we do is a largest expansion of the AMTD financial services as part of our ecosystem approach. And we have been expanding with a recent couple of acquisitions in Singapore, like FOMO Pay, payment platform like PolicyPal, which is an insurance tech company incubated in Singapore, and CapRage, which is a capital and crowdsourcing platform. We have recently partnered with Singapore, couple of strong players like Funding Society, SP Group, and the Xiaomi, which is the world's largest technology hardware mobile device producers. So our intention is to go ahead and expand the financial services out of Singapore across the region and globally through our SpiderNet and ecosystem approach. I will have more discussion as we go into the subject. Thank you.
Fantastic, great, and actually you jump right into the topic. So obviously we had the announcements of the digital banking licenses on Friday here in Singapore, and really factors that have really been regulations conducive to innovation in the region have led us to this point. And we've also heard from other regulators like in Malaysia and Indonesia and the Philippines that this is coming to their shores as well. So with that backdrop, and also the fact that in SME banking, if you look at SME banking as a cluster in FinTech, is one of the fastest growing, attractive, a lot of equity funding, not just in areas like payments and lending, liquidity management, but really providing that a marketplace to solve for problems for SMEs. Everything from onboarding to the CFO stack and so on. Be love to hear from your perspective. First of all, let's start with you, Osman. Where do you see the opportunities for SMEs, and what are you doing differently that we haven't seen? I spoke to the team earlier about my personal experience when I came to Singapore in 2008 and set up my own business. I found it very, very difficult to open an account for my business. And hopefully this has changed now.
Thank you, Pauline. First of all, I would say that you are not alone with similar experience. There are many. I worked plenty, about 27 years in incumbent banks, and I decided to get into this FinTech world to basically, be part of the transformation, which is fast accelerating. So before I talk about SME in particular, I think we should take a step back. That globally, if you look at the whole financial services are going through transformation, whether it's a bank, whether it is other financial services beyond banking, because the client experience is changing. And the digital adoption, if I may say, has taken a paradigm shift. Many banks who wanted to adopt digital channel were not able to move because the client experience or client themselves were not ready to get digitized, and not everyone. Like senior citizens who are still feels that there has to be an RM to interact versus the millennial who are very digital savvy. So the client experience is crucial, and clients' unmet need are paramount. That how do you address the need of the client? That's where the technology or digital adoption comes into the play. Now, if you look at individual, like your own experience, where you are struggling, so it's about onboarding. How do I onboard myself as an account holder of a bank, whether it is digital or non-digital? So there is a large part of unbanked segment who are not onboarded into any platform, whether digital or non-digital. And then there are a banking segment of client who have unmet need, that they are having bank account, but they don't have certain facilities. So that's the two side of it, portfolio. Many countries in the world, the banking population is tiny. You go to Indonesia, you go to, say, Bangladesh or India or Africa. So there is an unbanked segment that we need to bring into the ecosystem and make it part of the mainstream ecosystem or in the financial industry. In the SME sector, as you know, that we have been focusing on, and our application has been also for the wholesale bank with a strong consortium.
Correct.
In SME, it is everybody's aware that Singapore has got $23 billion of access to credit issue of SMEs only. Now, that $23 billion of access to credit, the review that was done about 1.5 to 2 years back, probably today it's even more. So there is a plenty of opportunity to cater to the need of the SMEs. And like it or not, COVID has impacted the world to change completely. So the SMEs themselves are trying to reinvent and do things differently. And the Singapore government has been very forthcoming with many sorts of grant to help them and asking the banks to support these SMEs. Now, this support cannot be perpetual. So this is a transition. So in that space, banks are actually the intermediary in the financial system. So how do I support my SMEs who is already with me but underserved, but also those who are not banked to bring them into the ecosystem? So I would say FinTech world who are getting banking license, today 4 of them, as announced last week by MAS, and then the incumbent banks who all have to partner together. It's not a competition. It is more of a collaboration that how we serve the need or unmet need of those clients. So I would say any business that we do, one is the past, that you need to see the history, and then one is to be able to predict the future, what is going to be like. And that's where you stay relevant. And unless you are relevant, whether you are a FinTech or whether you are an incumbent bank, none of us are going to be successful. So I think it's more of a joint collaboration and going ahead to solve the pain points of the individuals like yourselves who had challenge to onboard, and also the existing banked population, SME or otherwise, to solve their need. And that's how we can all be a success story for Singapore.
Great. No, thank you for that. That was a very good overview. And Joyce, I guess that's a good segue to yourself. How have you been solving for the unmet needs or underserved within the SME banking? And also interested to hear about how you're working with FinTechs in a collaborative manner, both from those who are enabling you, so to the likes of Shailesh, providing a banking technology to banks, and those who are potentially disrupting you.
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what you say, right? At the end of the day, whatever we do, it must be relevant to the very customer we serve. Okay, so there is one spectrum of people who just want to do it online, basically virtual and digital. There's also another group of people who they feel that they still need that physical touch. So I think for incumbent, I think there's a word they want to use on DBS Bank, like us, is that we are able to provide both, right? We're able to combine the best of digital services with physical touch point. Okay, and that is what is differentiate us. First, let me just talk about during this COVID here in Singapore, right? We have never done this before, but our financing volume, especially for what they call the underserved and unbanked, the micro enterprises, right? Within 5 months, we did 7 to 8 times more we have ever done, in previous year. We actually have dished out more than 1 billion to micro enterprises in the last 5 months. Okay, since we start doing this COVID, 1 billion for up to about 5,300 enterprises. When I put together small and micro, we did about 3 billion in Singapore dollars. Okay, to about 9,500 customers. That is the thing that, when you imagine, and during COVID, we work with the government to ensure that we are able to service them end to end, right? Without them having to come and touch our physical branch, having to able to accept the loan financing packages, digitally and remotely. And that we were able to imagine from them end to end. So today, we are the first in the market that we just came out to able to do biometric on account opening. Already in the past, we are able to basically for Singaporean with SingPass, we are able to actually onboard them digitally already. But now we are able to even on top of that enhance it with biometric. And along the same time, we are the first bank to partner people like JD Logistics to provide supply chain financing here in China and Hong Kong for those SME that do cross-border e-commerce import business. We're also the first in Asia to launch this real-time tracking of cross-border collection to provide greater convenience to SME. Our business class that span across the 6 markets we have about 380,000 members in our business class, whereby we exchange information and people can get in there and actually attend our SME Academy and our webinars where we bring forth to them, digitally, all the experts that talk about digital marketing and how they can go on classes to learn how to do accounting, how to apply for loans and things like that. For partnering with FinTech, we actually do this about 3 years ago, this thing called Startup Exchange, right? Whereby we introduced about 350 startups to actually look at our internal opportunities of solutions that we need from FinTechs. To date, we have about 45 of them that have proof of concept and 15 that actually go into deploy into actual production. In fact, we were the first about 7 years ago that we started with a lot of P2P lender that actually help them and work with them to actually do financing. So for those customers where they have the risk appetite for, they will actually use the platform, and we also refer customers that we cannot bank to them, and then they will go ahead and bank them. And then at the same time, where they need banking services, that's where DBS come in and help them with the so-called loan servicing, payment, collection, so that they have visibility of the customer cash flow. But when the loan get too big, they need a bigger partner, then they will then send the customer back to DBS. So we've done this even up to today with different guys who basically they have their own ecosystem, they have their own community they're financing. So to me, just like what Osman has said, it's not really a competition or it's one against the other. More, I think it's very complementary. And in fact, it's actually helping us to learn about what we need to do even better. So in DBS, we believe, right, business equal technology. Technology equal business. It's all hand in hand and embedded in each other. Okay, and we actually welcome all our friendly peers in this space to help us to grow and develop even further.
Yeah, super. No, that's a great overview, and I hope some insight for those watching. Now, Shailesh, you're providing banking as a service, so I'm sure you've seen quite a number of business models. Folks looking to solve for problems. How do you see it from a provider perspective, the disruption or the servicing of the micro SMEs and SMEs, which is continues to be an underserved and a big space and a space where there's a lot of potential?
Yeah, thank you, Pauline. So I'd like to answer that by also just addressing, your earlier question and the responses. There is a massive underserved. We tend to think of underserved as individuals, but they're underserved organizations as well, as we know. And for us, underserved is not just access to capital; it's also access to good financial technology. So while it's great that like DBS and everyone is marching on and adding more and more digital services, I think it's worth considering why did MAS actually issue these new licenses? If the needs were being met, then what was the need to have more digital banks in this space? And I think, therefore, it does come to increasing competition. I think it does put some pressure on the incumbents to adopt technology faster. Incumbents, traditional banks, have the largest IT budgets anyway. They spend huge amounts. But still, there's that customer who's unsatisfied. Still, there's that customer who's not the access to the latest or whether it's data-based, analytics, artificial intelligence, better customer service. And just on that, also, just to comment that I think it's fantastic that MAS has taken the step. It was a very, very rigorous process, we know, as we were part of it as well. We're unfortunate not to get it. I'm very, very sure that the ones who did get awarded the license came in with what must have been just a fantastic proposal. And I'm pretty sure it would be based heavily on advanced technologies. And therefore, I do think that it will create a lot of good, healthy competition. And it will create actually islands of customers, those that want new, fast, easy access to loans, better the services, integrated with lifestyle, integrated with all the other businesses you have. So from a MatchMove point of view, we will still continue on this path of providing a banking as a service. We can continue to do this without a license, but of course, having a license gives you that additional structure and product. In many countries, we partner with other banks. These are forward-looking banks who say, you know what, I can't move fast enough with the technology. You've already built it or are building it. Come and help me drive the process. Where is that gap? Where is that pain point? I think what's happened is that as traditional banks have over time, and they've built, they've been around for decades, have compliance, regulation, processes, and also legacy technology, which they all have to manage and bring forward. But the customer themselves, whether they're SMEs or individuals, have moved much faster. We're better on our phones. We do more on chats. We do more on everything else except banking. So banking is under pressure now to catch up and give you that same digital experience like all of us are used to in every other part of the world. In fact, our bank in Singapore, one of our banks in Singapore, was unable to open an additional account for us during the COVID time. They said you have to go down to the branch. So it does actually suggest that there needs to be pressure for competition. Technology can make a difference. Bringing new players into the market will definitely jazz it up, juice it up, and cause everyone to move faster, and therefore it will benefit ultimately all of us. The kind of organizations we work with, they actually say the same thing. We have a number of organizations who say, I work with an incumbent bank. I may get a loan, but it takes too long. The credit process is too cumbersome, too traditional. I like the way you guys do things. It's still safe, it's compliant, it's regulated, etc. But what we find they also like about us is that we're serving them technologically as well, in terms of APIs, in terms of the kinds of architectures we have, in terms of the way we deliver our services, but especially in terms of the way, as a platform, as a service, we're open to everyone. Again, typically, whenever we talk to banks, they have a segment, they have a minimum size, they structure accordingly as well. They provide different levels of service to them, different priorities to them, different interest rates, all kinds of stuff. So what you're seeing in the fintech space is players like us saying, actually, we've used technology to standardize it, and we can work with anyone, whether you're a one-man person or you're a very large organization. Our customers, we're B2B, our customers can range from exactly one-person shop, and one of our other customers is a transport organization that manages millions of passengers every year. So I think you're going to see that as well, that it's not just SMEs access underserved in terms of access to quick loans and quick disbursement, but you are going to see them become much more sophisticated about who they partner with. And it doesn't have to be a bank, as long as it's the right kind of service and it's regulated.
Correct. No, that's a very big point, and I think it's something that we're seeing more and more in the region. It's a little bit more mature in the US, for example, but we're seeing it more here. So we don't have a lot of time, but one area that we wanted to cover as well was around, we're celebrating our 5th anniversary here at the Singapore FinTech Festival, and also with that, we've had a book published by Varamital on Singapore, the FinTech Nation, which really tells the story of all of the work that was done together across all the different ecosystem players to get us where we are today. Be really great to get some of your views on some of the, how do we continue to be the hub of choice, maybe for Southeast Asia and more for the region, and in some instances globally for specific areas. What are the table stakes that we need, and what are the needle movers so we can remain that fintech hub? Osman, why don't I start with you, and we'll keep that order. Obviously, you must have seen something. AMTD Digital must have seen something in Singapore, and you made an investment a few months ago that really clearly sends a message, and that this is a hotspot in the region, and somewhere where you've raised some funding to reinvest back into the ecosystem. So in your opinion, what do we do next? What is the next 5 years?
Thank you. It's a great question. I hope I had the magic answer. But honestly, if you just look back, the way this Singapore FinTech Festival, as an example, it is now the world's largest FinTech festival with so many participants coming in. So it has gone to 4 years into this scale. And AMTD has been the lead grand sponsor who believed in this idea, not today, but for last 4 years that we have been partnering and sponsoring this, even this year too. And we have committed to do that for next at least 3 years. So definitely there is a strong commitment from our side. And if you see the team that we are building now in Singapore, moving the headquarter itself of AMTD Digital to be in Singapore. Now, Singapore, if you just compare as a place, as an industry, say airlines, look at Singapore Airlines or Changi Airport. It has evolved into a global hub, if I may say, with the airlines and the connectivity, how it has connected the rest of the world. So similarly, Singapore is very much geared in terms of its infrastructure, which to me is a strong enabler to mushroom this fintech to grow. Because many fintechs on their own or banks on their own cannot digitize unless your country's infrastructure supports them. So example being the FAST or Pay Now in the banking sector that MAS has driven, and it has connected the rails for other players to join in. And MAS has now allowing the non-bank players like new digital banks and fintechs to come into that rail. So you see, once these guardrails are opened, then a lot more products and services can go through. So I, as a fintech, or Shailesh as a fintech, or Joyce as a DBS large bank, cannot in isolation launch a product or a service and reach to everyone if the network doesn't provide that, the platform doesn't provide that. To me, that is a 101 for any country to flourish in a technology-connected world, to create that infrastructure. Now, obviously, there is legal issues, things like Joyce just mentioned about My Info as an example, or onboarding experience of the client, where you need to validate certain data with the central repository. I was personally involved. MAS launched a program 2 years back called KYC 2.0. It's nothing but onboarding of SMEs in a digital way, so that they don't have to spend their time with each bank and RMs and provide the same set of documentation from bank A to bank B. So the idea was this utility will be created and it will be connected to ACRA, where you are actually getting registered as a company, and fetch that data into the utility, which can disseminate that information to any bank. So client digitally can onboard. So today, many companies who are coming to get registered in Singapore, they are contacting agencies that what's the process of onboarding or opening an account or opening a company in Singapore. So if we can create a service that allows a client even from overseas to get into ACRA registration and at the same time open a standalone bank account, whether it's a digital bank or an incumbent bank, then look at the experience of that entity, how quickly they can come into Singapore without being physically present. So these are the opportunities that we have to look at. And I think Singapore is way ahead in terms of the Singapore government's commitment, the investments required to think ahead, to do the right thing for players to come in. So data, another challenge. API enablement is one challenge. And MAS is publishing those new set of APIs. MAS is talking to IMDA and us to make these data standards and making it harmonized across the industry. So once this fundamental issue is being resolved, then many players will do financial services through technology without even being physically present here. And if we do that, we can actually expand that to Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, anywhere in the world, because digital world doesn't matter where you are sitting, like today.
Yeah, correct.
That's the
I'm just going to give the opportunity that was really great. I mean, you spoke about some of the, definitely some of the hot topics here, corporate KYC, which we gave it a try, investment necessary to have that, that viable environment, data, API enablement. Joyce, would love to hear from your perspective, what are the table stakes? What are the table stakes that we need to continue being that fintech hub or the needle movers?
So I think we in Singapore here we operate extremely well, the public and private partnership framework, right? As a city, state, and country, every part of the system comes very quickly once a path forward is determined. So that was very well articulated by Osman just now, right? And you can see that MAS even have set up a new division just for fintech and hire a full-time guy to lead this initiative to create a proper infrastructure around sandboxing, regulation, promoting fintechs both locally and internationally. So I want to give some example. For example, right, when we have done our analytics-based lending in India successfully, we actually MAS actually asked us to share that and then see how we can actually replicate that here in Singapore. And we have successfully replicated that here in Singapore and even able to use it for in Hong Kong and China and Indonesia. And this is kudos to also the way that we partner MAS in coming up the sandboxing solutions here. Okay. The other thing that I must say that in terms of here as a fintech is that where the government also help us to look at it not just locally, domestically, but also how do we do cross-border thing. It's about connectivity. At the end of the day, the SME customer need to, especially for Singapore SMEs, right? They need to go beyond just Singapore. Because Singapore as a city-state is actually the demand is not enough. Is quite limited, in terms of opportunities. And what I see the government has done is actually work very closely with IMDA and GovTechs. For IMDA, we do a lot of vertical industry solution. Just now, what Celeste said, right? The fact that we do quite a fair bit together with IMDA to imagine, and work with also fintechs like themselves and startup to business. How do we imagine? On different ecosystems. So, for example, F&B ecosystem, for example, we were able to work with IMDA to bring forward the startup and fintech that they work with, like Order, Firstcom, to see how do we do end-to-end, and Bizman to do B2B, one B2C and then B2B, and how to link the whole thing together and then put it payment collection solution, at the same time financing solution to help them, and at the same time how do we onboard a customer digitally without having them to come to the branch. So these are all kudos to the private and public partnership, right? And in logistics, for example, right?
So sorry, Joyce. That's really great, and it gives a good overview of what we've done. Shailesh, I know we don't have a lot of time, but really want to give you the opportunity because obviously you've lived through it.
Thank you. I know it's a minute to go, so I'll go straight in. Fantastic work by Singapore FinTech Festival, put us on the map, helped fintechs like us because it's brought so many people here over the last many years and just done wonders for our business as well as it has for other fintechs. The one thing I would ask, while there's investment track, startup track, all these other tracks, we need a regulated track where we bring all the regulators together and get to passporting in Southeast Asia like they have done in Europe. If we can get regulatory standardized across the region, it will completely move the needle right to the end.
Perfect. Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you, everybody. Right. Well, with that, we conclude not so fintechs versus not so incumbents, but a great overview during that short half an hour. And thank you to all my panelists. Joyce, Osman, and Shailesh, and have a great afternoon and enjoy the next session, the rest of the sections. We have a packed afternoon and rest of the week. Thank you.
Thank you.